Good evening, my fellow exorcists, and welcome to the Lay of the Film Exorcist. Tonight, I, the Film Exorcist, will be reviewing Spider-Man 2. When a failed nuclear fusion experiment results in an explosion that kills his wife, Dr. Otto Octavius, played by Alfred Molina, is transformed into Dr. Octopus, a cyborg with deadly metal tentacles. Doc Ock blames Spider-Man, played by Tobey Maguire, for the accident and seeks revenge. Meanwhile, Spidey's alter ego, Peter Parker, faces fading powers and self-doubt. Complicating matters are his best friends, James Franco, who plays Harry Osborn, who hates Spider-Man, and his true love, Kirsten Dunst, who plays Mary Jane, who suddenly gets engaged to another man. This was a redemption for the superhero sequel, because it presented a very well identified concept. I mean, at this point, we already know who Peter Parker is, we already know who Spider-Man is, we know he's in love with Mary Jane, we know that Dr. Osborn is dead, that Harry is grieving over this and hates Spider-Man, and we already know that Peter Parker is struggling with his relationship with his friends and his alter ego, Spider-Man. To be honest, this is the best setup for a sequel. I mean, we already know our character, we already know his backstory. Now we're seeing what happens when Spider-Man essentially loses his powers and gets to live a normal life again. I mean, he's already lost Uncle Ben, his father figure. His Aunt May is in debt and having problems staying in her home because of the loss of Uncle Ben. And Peter Parker is essentially being torn apart between two lifestyles. I mean, Peter can't even go see his friend's show when she needs him. He can't keep a job. He's essentially on his own in this story. He's living alone. He's no longer living with Harry. He's gone from job to job. The only job he really had was a pizza delivery job, and he lost that. And other than that, he had the temp job with the Daily Bugle, who's paying him small wages to take pictures of his alter ego. So Peter's really not in a good position here, and he's also failing classes in college. He's stressed, like most of us these days, like me personally. I'm constantly stressed. I was stressed when I had college. I'm stressed now when I have to worry about work and getting my license and getting all these things. Honestly, this is a very relatable Peter Parker. In this movie, we see this stress taking a toll on him. I mean, literally, for a while, he can't be Spider-Man anymore because of all the stress. It's taking a toll on his body and essentially canceling out his powers. And with this, he's able to live a normal life away from the Spider-Man alter ego. On top of this, we also have the main villain story, where Dr. Octopus, or Dr. Otto Octavius, essentially is trying to create a power source that will improve the world, and in doing so, he ends up killing his wife, almost ending Harry Osborn's career by helping him. Among other things, he puts so many people at risk just to, in his words, put the power of the sun in the palm of his hand. And it's up to Spider-Man, who, again, has literally no powers in this movie for a huge chunk. It's up to him trying to deal with the stress and save New York from Dr. Octopus. We also get a very powerful scene where Peter's ignoring all these robberies and crimes, but in the end, he he can't do that. He's too good of a person, and there's this scene where he jumps into a burning building just to save a young girl, because it's the right thing, and because just because you've lost your powers doesn't mean you can stop being a hero. He also realizes the problem of Spider-Man not being around because while he did save the young girl, there was another person in the same building that died because he wasn't able to save them. I also love how this movie is filmed in a very horror-like view. I mean, we watch as each doctor is literally slaughtered by these tentacles, and it shows that essentially Otto is gone and these monstrous tentacles have taken over. And we also get a bunch of diagonal shots of certain scenes. I also want to point out that there are some things that didn't work in this movie, despite it being one of the best sequels for a superhero movie. One of them is they add this flashback like transition that takes us to the lake house where Otto is after he realizes that he's lost everything. Like, it's the transition doesn't work here because again it is heavily known for being used in flashbacks. On top of that, near the end, there was that awkward diagonal scene with Mary Jane in the wedding dress, and we're watching her come towards the camera, and it looks awkward. The ending is weird, in a way. The way it's shot, I love this movie. I'm not gonna lie, I do love this movie. I feel it's somewhat better than the original Spider-Man, but yeah, there are some bad shots in this movie. There's also some corny dialogue, like everybody's favorite line, "Pizza time."
Pizza time.
You're late.
The elevator scene that everybody knows about Spider-Man talking to this random businessman about how his suit makes his crotch itch, like,
It rides up in the crotch a little bit too.
why are you bothering this nice man? I mean, he complimented your suit and you choose to add the weirdest dialogue about chafing and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, we kind of get a bit of that in Into the Spider-Verse with the baby powder into the suit to stop chafing thing, but here it's kind of awkward. It's also weird, someone pointed out that apparently Mary Jane cheats on someone with Spider-Man in every movie. Like, the first one, she cheats on Harry with Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker. In this one, she essentially cheats on or goes after Peter after she's essentially about to be married to J. Jonah Jameson's son, the astronaut. And apparently she does the same thing in the third Spider-Man movie. Like I said in No Way Home, Alfred Molina is a really good character in this movie. Like, you sympathize him because, yes, his wife just died. I mean, through a mistake that he made. On top of that, the research that he's been working on for a while is essentially the cause of his wife's death, and it's essentially going down the drain. In this movie, both Spider-Man and Otto are essentially near to losing everything. I mean, this is like the second movie that Aunt May has been attacked by a supervillain. The first movie, it was Norman Osborn attacking her, asking if Spider-Man can come out to play. In this one, it's Norman capturing her, putting her on like having her hang from a ledge and throwing her off a building, while Spider-Man has to try and save her with his deteriorating powers. So yeah, essentially, Aunt May is very similar to Mary Jane in these movies, where she's the damsel in distress despite her also having that kind of added fighting spirit of trying to beat up Otto while he's attacking Spider-Man. I also love the New York spirit in this movie with the train scene where Spider-Man essentially has to save a train from Otto Octavius, essentially stopping it from careening off off the rails, which again is one of the most iconic scenes that they also took out of the comics and has been referenced many times, because this is the moment where essentially New York has his back. They all come together, they present him with the promise that they will keep his identity secret, which they do ultimately deliver on, and most of them stand up for Spider-Man. Again, really great movie, really great superhero sequel, one of the rare great ones, and yeah, so I'm giving this a 11 out of an 11, which is one of my highest scores, because this is higher than Spider-Man for me, and it's technically on par with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and No Way Home, but it's also got that it's what gave us the great Otto Octavius, and it works as a horror movie also. So 11 out of 11. 11 Spidey senses, and a quadruple plus. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and click the little notification bell for more videos. And have a great night, and remember, if people need you, don't just turn your back on them. Think about the consequences of you disappearing on them, because it might just have that big of an impact. Have a great night.